Good morning. Special thank you to all the Misadrim for this share. Rav Nachman and Rav Moti and all the people who are involved, and especially my Rebbe, Rav Chaim Kramer, and the rest of research. Thank you to everyone. We're still in Torah Zion of Tinaina, and so far we've established that only a true Rachaman can be a true leader, and that really is one major individual, Moshe Rabbeinu, and the extent to which in every single tzaddik emes, a true tzaddik emes, Moshe Rabbeinu is invested actually in their personality as well. We've talked a little bit about that. We might get to it much later, but for now, what we have pointed out is that Moshe Rabbeinu's main mission, almost single mission, is to instill das in every single human being. And in paragraph 2, we establish ki ik ha'adam hu hadas. The main person is their mind. We could actually dig in this forever because the mind is infinite, because for a very simple reason, the mind is the chelik elokam mima'al. Hashem's, so to speak, presence inside a human being is the neshama that powers the person, and the main control tower of the human being is his brain, and contained in his brain is the neshama. The neshama fills the whole body. That's a Gemara in Brachas Daf Yud, but the actual control tower, so to speak, is actually the brain. We actually say it when in Leshem Yichud for putting on Tefillin Shel Rosh, that the moyach is where the neshama is. The soul, the neshama, is powering the mind. So the mind, therefore, is limitless. There's no end how much a person in their lifetime can come to madregas of avas Hashem, yiras Hashem, avas Torah, avas Chaim, simchas Hachayim. There's no end to it. And Rav Nachman points out that in his own lifetime, he reached a point where in one day he could accomplish what would take ordinarily a whole lifetime, and then he reduced that to in 1 hour he could accomplish what would take 70 years, and then it went down to a quarter of an hour, and then eventually came down to 1 moment. So it's impossible really for us to properly understand this. There are some people who've experienced in a moment of seeing their death in front of them, they've actually experienced seeing their entire life go right in front of them in a split second. It took no time. And there are many cases of people who actually did die medically and came back, and often would describe what became known as a panoramic view of their entire life. From the moment they were born, they actually saw themselves being born, all the way till the last moment when they physically died. And all that took place in a split second. Really, it took no time at all. So what we're talking about when we say Ikar Adam Hu Hadas, it really is the absolute emes. And there's no end to how much one can actually really dig into this, because there's no experience in this world except through your mind. Even a physical injury is taking place in the mind. Rav Nachman's talked about this, and Bezrat Hashem, we will see it not today, where even Yisurin, even suffering, is taking place inside the mind. Even galus is a lack of Emunah, which is taking place inside my mind. So everything boils down to the same thing. Everything we're experiencing is taking place only in one place, and that's the mind. So now the question becomes, okay, so what should I fill my mind with? So Moshe Rabbeinu, he gave us the Torah from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he gives us 613 directives, not mentioning the small print, but there are 613 instructions of how to use our mind. And out of those, 81 of those mitzvahs actually apply to the mind. That's the count from Sefer Haredim. The actual number, when you include all the other Moinei HaMitzvahs, is closer to about 107. 107 mitzvahs are totally believed, depend on your thinking, which is quite extraordinary. But the main point here is Ikar Adam Hu Hadas. And what is that das? So Moshe Rabbeinu at Har Sinai, other
than the 6 mitzvot medias, where do we find the other? I mean, Korban Pesach is dependent on your mind. I mean,
So Korban Mesa, you're correct, is a Mesa.
But it does, when you look at the mitzvahs to come up with that high a number, that's only
Totally believe, and the mitzvahs Tamidius out of the 81,
Right,
really
so
107,
six.
is about 60. 60. I'm not going into this now, but this is a question that has been asked to many Gedolim of previous and present generation. Why is it that the Sefer Chinuch singled out 6, and Mishnah Berurah himself quotes that in the first Biur Halacha in Shulchan Aruch, in Orach Chaim? And what's astonishing is that Sefer Haredim counts 20 mitzvahs which are Tamidi, and the Chavetz Chaim gave a seder every morning, gave a shiur in Sefer Haredim, so he doesn't mention the fact that according to Sefer Haredim, out of the 81, 20 of them are Tamidi.
I mean, the only ones I can think of are in terms of the Kabbalah.
So
have Das said it was over here, but it wasn't over here. He did afterwards.
The Emunah is taking place in the mind. Avas Hashem is in the mind. Avas Yisrael is in the mind. Simcha, if we're going to count that as mitzvah, is in the mind. Tamim Tiyem Hashem Elokecha, that's taking place in the mind. Lidabek Boy, not to be Masech Das from Kodesh Baruch Hu. When you start counting it,
I see where we're.
Yeah. So Ikar Adam Hu Adas, and it goes so far, which I'm only going to touch on Ezra Hashem very briefly because I have done. We have looked at this before, but even our what's called hergeshim, which is not a biblical term, it's a rabbinical term, and since then it's in the world of psychology, it became a mamashus. That my feelings are a mamashus, where what we actually know is that feelings are taking place here, and that I am always feeling my thoughts. Always. There are no exceptions to that. And because of that, every single mitzvah in the Torah that's telling me, let's say, don't be angry. So some count it as a mitzvah d'oraisa. Don't be jealous. That's definitely mitzvah d'oraisa. Jealousy, I would think, is actually a hergish. It's a feeling. And yet, what Chazal revealed to us is no, it's actually a thought. And what Hashem is asking me to control is my thinking. So Lo Tatu Achrei Levavchem is referring to don't follow your thoughts, follow my thoughts. And that's why the pasuk, we've said this before, that pasuk of not following your thoughts is exactly the same pasuk that says Uzchatem et kol mitzvosai v'asisem osam. Do remember my mitzvahs so that you will do them, and then I can tell you, now that I've told you to follow my mitzvahs, I can tell you don't follow what you think. Only screen it through a das that's filled with Torah. So this is really what Moshe Rabbeinu was giving us at Har Sinai. He gave us the Torah so we know how to control our minds. It goes so far that even Yira and Pachad, Daiga, are all taking place in the mind. They're all taking place in thought. So even though we think of Yira, for example, as a hey, that's a feeling. So Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter in his Sefer Nichtav B'Sefer, and this is volume 1 in Maimah Yudalet. Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter wrote a Sefer Nichtav B'Sefer. It's actually it's taken from all his shiurim. So he brings a proof. He actually quotes from the Balatanya in Likuti Torah, Parshas Veschanan, Perek Vav, Amud Beis. Shekal, so he wrote the following. Shekal, these are words for word. Kol hergeshei ha'adam nimshachim acha machshavasoi. All the feelings, emotions of a human being, nimshachim, are drawn after machshavasoi, what he thinks. K'she'adam choshev me'ezer inyan shel atzvus. This is all taking place in Das. Das is so important because once I know atzvus is taking place in my mind. Despair, has v'shalom yirush, is taking place in my mind. Daiga, worry, anxiety, incorporated, Inc. I call it Inc. because it's an industry today. Anxiety is taking place in my thoughts. And Moshe Rabbeinu came to tell us, Ikar Adam Hu Adas. And guess who puts, what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing? He's putting us in control of our lives. Because if my life is dictated by this ridiculous spouse, this ridiculous child who's driving me crazy, this mother-in-law who won't stop interfering, by this brother who is ruining my relationships with the rest of my siblings, if I really hang my problems on people and circumstances, I'm out of control. But as long as it's really das, and the main das is, as we've seen, that to know that Hashem Hu Elokim Ein Oid Milvado, there's no other powers beside Him, in which case all circumstances and all people who are surfacing in my mind, surfacing in my life, are for my mind to choose how to respond, to exercise my bechira. And Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the das to know who Hashalit al Kolaris. Hashem is the one who is sholet. He actually is the one who's control over the entire earth. So continues Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, Adam Chayshev Me'eza Inyan Shel Atzvus, if I were to pay attention to any topic of anxiety, worry, I turn myself in that moment into an atzav, nervous, v'doyek, and warrior. If my mind switches to something that is happy, a thought of happiness, maybe simcha. He brings upon himself simcha, meaning to say it's my mind that dictates my feelings. It's my mind that dictates the emotion we call simcha. It's not actually.
How do you switch gears?
We've talked.
It's a big avoid. How do you switch gears?
What's
the instruction manual?
Yes, it's actually the Torah, and we looked at quite a few strategies in the last Torah that we learned together. But the essential answer is, number one, I've got to be aware of where this is really taking place. Is it an outside-in paradigm, or is it an inside-out paradigm? If it's an outside-in paradigm, then my wife, my children, my community control my happiness. They control the weather system of my moods. If it's the politics or the global politics or local politics that's controlling my anxiety, then all that has to change for me to have Yishuv Hadas, a very important term. Yishuv is from Lashon of sitting. That a person's not running around. Like Pizo HaNefesh is the opposite. Pizo HaNefesh means my mind is splintered in so many directions, ADD, ADHD, that I can't focus for more than a moment on anything. So my mind is splintered. I have no Yishuv Hadas. So Yishuv Hadas is a lashon of being settled, which is the lashon that Rabbeinu Zal Rav Nachman brings actually in this same paragraph when he talks about Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to fill the world with people who are settled in this world. And the Ikar Hadas of a person is the mind, that we are settled. And what type of people? People who are contributing to society. As he brings the lashon, V'haya oisik b'yishuv ha'olam. And Yishuv ha'olam is a language which Chazal unpack and teach us that Yishuv ha'olam means that people are contributing, they're working, they're giving to society, and that's how they are able to provide a better quality of life for themselves and the rest of the world. So they are contributing, but that starts with das. So Hakol Talib Machshava continues. The first place is awareness, and we're going to talk about the answer to your question another time, but it's not in today's notes because we have covered it in the previous Torah. Hakol Talib Machshava. Everything depends on your thought, and where's your thought taking place? Das. So it's all taking place in the das. If he wasn't thinking about anxiety or happiness, so he won't get aroused to the emotion that we call happiness and anxiety. Nimsa, im la'adam yesh pachadim or shigyonos. If someone has fears, or he's got obsessive thinking, that's how I'm translating this. The answer, the solution to my fears and my obsessive thinking is not to fight them and push them away, because then I'm in the fighting ring. I'm actually getting in with the Yetzer Hara, who is trying to get me into Pachad, into Daiga, into Atzvus, into Yush, into Machlokes, into everything that's the Sitra Achra, is what the Yetzer Hara is strategizing, literally strategizing to get me into. The solution is don't let your mind go there. Then guess what happens? The problem actually gets bottled by itself. Now I can say, hey, that's all very nice.
It's pretty much living in the Nile.
That's what psychology will tell you.
No, but it's actually it's justifying for living in the Nile. Don't get afraid you're living in the Nile.
It's denial of non-reality. That's we've seen. I don't know if we actually looked at the Malbim inside, but it's very kedai. Look at the Malbim on Mishlei, Perak Yud Beis Pasuk Kaf Hey. Daiga belevish yashchena. So the word yashchena means suppress it, push it down, bow down, don't elevate it, suppress it. And that's the first eitzah that the pasuk from Shlomo HaMelech tells us. Says Labriut, says the Malbim. It's really kedai to look at the Malbim. And if you want to really dig deeper, look at Ma'am Loez on the same pasuk. He gives you about 9 different strategies, and it all has to do with what modern psychology would call suppression and denial. When in reality, what's happening when a person has a daiga in his mind, what's really happening is I make this real by thinking about it. I make it so real, I even add more and more proof to my narrative that I have reason and justification for being upset or worried or overwhelmed by what's happening. And it's astonishing that in the mitzvah not to judge anybody, we have like several levels. Number 1, in Pirkei Avos it tells us, Ein dan yichidi ela echad. Don't judge because only HaKadosh Baruch Hu's got the full picture. Which means that when I do judge, I am extremely likely to have a misjudgment. And if I can't control myself, I've got to judge. Then I go to another Mishnah, also in Pirkei Avos, Al tadin et chaverecha, do not judge anybody. Don't judge your friends. Don't judge your friend until you're in his shoes, you're in his place. Will you ever be in that person's place? Never. What happens if it's your twin and you grew up in the same home with the same parents, the same parenting, and you went to school and you wore the same clothes? You did everything together, and are you in a better position now to judge your twin? Which is just another way of saying you can never judge anybody because you're never going to be in their place. Then comes along a third Pirkei Avos. If I still can't control myself, I've got to judge you. Then the Torah comes and tells me there's a mitzvah d'oraisa, but tzedek tishbot amitecha, which has 2 manifestations. It's referring to judges in court. They're not allowed to show favoritism, like make one person stand, one person sit, show favoritism, one person who's better dressed than another. So it's an instruction to judges, but mitzad sheni, it's an instruction to every single Jew. It's brought havidan at kol adam l'chavzchus, which is this Mishnah, that if I'm going to be done on you, if I'm going to judge you, then if I've got 2 possibilities, one is I'm going to judge you based on what I saw and heard, or option number 2, I'm going to judge you based on my creative imagination. You talk about AI. If there's any way I can create in my imagination some sort of matzav, some sort of scenario which puts what you said or did into a positive light, a favorable light, which of the 2 does the Torah command me to select? Either what I heard and saw, and I'm going to judge you on that, or on the second, which is telling me to search for any way to be done a chavzchus on you, which will put you in a favorable light. So it comes out something quite astonishing. You're mechuyev to select number 2, because the chances of my impression about you, my judgment about you, in selecting number 1 is going to be so off the charts, inaccurate, exaggeration, wrong, because I don't have all the information, I don't have the full picture. That by being done chavzchus in my creative imagination is going to be closer to the emes than my own eyes and ears. It's astonishing. So the point is, there is no point in me judging you. There's just simply no point. And when I do, I chain myself to that narrative. And when I chain myself to that narrative, I get stuck. And when I get stuck and I can't let go, I start living a life of judgment. And when I'm living that life, I'm chained to so many people. My boss, my spouse, my kids-in-law, my parents-in-law, my mechutonim. And before you know it, my mind is not liberated. It's not free. I'm not a really truly free person. And Chazal tell us, you will not find anybody who's a truly free person, which means to say, knows Torah mitzvahs and some of the details and follows them because it's all taking place here. Moshe Rabbeinu gave us the ability to know that the real das is the real person. And that this is where I operate everything. And when I'm done Chav Chov, I'm only hurting myself. Because when I come upstairs and I discover, oh, this was the way this person was raised. This is what was going through their mind when this child was raised in my house. And I didn't chop it. I didn't chop it. And the writing was on the wall, for heaven's sake, and I still didn't read the writing. I will never know what's really happening. So comes along Chazal and say, don't judge. If you have to, then make sure you're in their place. You'll never be in their place. Okay, so you're not going to at least be dan chavschus. But that dan chavschus is my creative imagination, and that's what Rabbeinu Zal's Rav Nachman is telling us in Reish Pei Beis, which Rav Nosson said many times is the ikar limud of all the Torahs, is to be dan chavschus, find the nekudas tovos, because finding the nekudas tovos and adding them up and adding them up and adding them up eventually will tip the scale that I start realizing, you know what, life is good. No, that's not accurate. Life is really good. And it's not because I say so, it's because God said so. The world is exceedingly good. So comes along Rabbi Yaakov Ner Shechter to help me understand that all my emotions are taking place over here, and therefore I'm in charge. Now he asks a great question, which relates to what we were just saying before, is that when it comes to one of the most powerful emotions, and that's fear. Fear of death. Now that's pretty strong. Should I be in fear or not? And so comes along Rabbi Yaakov Ner Shechter. It's the same Maimah Yud Dalet. It's over the page on page Kuf Ayin Vav. He says, "Hine b'Torasenu HaKadosha yesh lav miyuchad." We have a loy taseh, which everyone agrees is in Tarek mitzvahs. One of Tarek mitzvahs is you're not allowed to be afraid if you're a Jewish soldier and you go to war. You're not allowed to be afraid. What? You're telling me what? I'm allowed to fear and not fear? That's an emotion. How can you command an emotion? In Dvarim Perek Kaf Pasuk Gimel, Parashat Shoftim, Al Yirach Livavchem. Don't let your thoughts get weakened. Don't let your thoughts get scared. Yirach is a lashon of weakening. Shebe'ez hamilchama lo yiyali bayrach. When you're in battle, do not get worried. Don't be fearful. V'lo yifachet. Don't live in fear. V'harambam b'chilchos malachim perek zayin mivaya ketzad yitachin. The Rambam clarifies how is it possible lahazir sa'adam shelo yifachet, to warn a person, don't be afraid. Rebbeinu Shleilam, we've lost all our artillery. We're out of ammunition. I'm surrounded by on all four sides. There was once a general who was informed that the enemy was surrounding us on all four sides. So being positive as he was, he said, "I have great news for all my soldiers. Because we are surrounded in all four sides, this is the first time in the history of this war that I can tell you it doesn't make a difference which direction you attack or fire." So how can the Torah, this is Rambam's question, how can the Torah tell me not to be afraid? He is afraid and his heart is pulsating. How can the Torah command me something that I don't have the ability to be Mekayim? I'm afraid. Superior artillery, superior numbers. What are you telling me not to be afraid? But writes the Rambam, Hamaschil lachshoiv. When a person begins, this is the lashon of the Rambam, B'inyanei hamilchama, about details of the war, superior artillery. We don't have any cover. We've lost ammunition. B'moraseha, and all what's happening in the war, ad shemegia lematzav shel pachad, till he gets, based on the conclusion in his mind, we are outnumbered. They've got superior artillery, and now in response to what I'm thinking, I now have pachad, I now have fear. Harihu oiver Allah shel al yirach livavchem. Now I am in violation of a loy taseh. The Torah commands me not to be afraid. Not to be afraid where? Livavchem, your thoughts. Harilanu shal Rambam havin. You see that the Rambam understood. Shahazhara hi loy himshich al atzmoi machshava shel pachad. Not to allow a thought of fear to be drawn into my mind and then play on it and think about it. If a person stops thinking about what's happening in front of him, Memela nitzbatel hapachad. The pachad will simply fall away. It will cancel out itself. V'zeh ma shemuva b'perkei Avos, perek beis mishnah dalet. This, and here it brings a beautiful proof. Yafet Talmud Torah im derech eretz. Why is learning and earning a living a beautiful combination? It's the only place in all Shisha Sidrei Mishnah the word Yafeh applies to these two items, and the two items, when they are in combination, is called beautiful. Yafeh Talmud Torah im derech eretz sheyigia shnehem mishkachas avoin. Because when a person is busy learning and earning a living, he forgets to do averos. Mishkachas hu lashon shel hesach hadas. Forgetting is the lashon of my mind not paying attention to the war, to the problems. And now I'm living without the problems. So in psychology, they'll say that's denial, and it's going to hit back much worse later on. And according to, you'll see the Malbim there, he says it's not only not denial, it's actually living mentally healthy. Mental health is not paying attention and not driving myself nuts. We've talked about this in detail previously. Holocaust survivors, they survived because they weren't focused on the pain that they went through. And thank God psychology hadn't developed therapists during the lifetime, at least in the decades that survivors were surviving. Otherwise, they would have all been told, you have been traumatized and you have to go to therapy. The true solution to trauma is to not think about it. And the biggest problem to trauma is to think about it, and worse than that, talk about it, until I believe I'm actually damaged. So, but the Ikar Das that Moshe Rabbeinu gave us is the Das that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Hu Elokim Eino Et Mevadeh. That's the last line in this paragraph 2 of Torah Zayin. Ki Hu Pasach Lanu Or Hadas. He gave us this incredible light of the mind, and that is clarity of the mind. As the pasuk says, we've looked at the context of that pasuk. Ata hareta. Now you've been shown. Ledas, to see and know. Ki Hashem Hu Elokim. He, Hashem, the constant one who existed, exists, and will always exist. Ein Oid Mevadeh. There's no other power beside him. Ki Moshe Pasach Es Hadas. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that opened up our mind. This is the Malbim.
Yeah.
Did you read it through?
It's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
Very powerful.
Ki Moshe Pasach Es Hadas v'gila lanu. Do you want me to read it through?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Beneficial, because the way.
Ki yesh Elokim shalet ba'aretz. There's a power of all powers who controls the world. If there's a power of all powers, who should I go to? Who should I turn to? Turn to the power of all powers. Now, if I'm not up to that, at least go to his tzaddikim. In Pele Yoetz, he brings that in that same pasuk, Daig b'levi yashchena, v'dava tov yisamchena. If you really want to deal with the daiga, then you know how you can not only deal with the daiga, you can turn the daiga into a reason for being happy. And how do you do that? Davatov. Rashi brings Davatov. This applies to anyone who loves learning. That learning takes your mind off whatever's going on else in your world. And so Rashi brings learn Torah, and it's not a subjugation. It's not a denial. It's not a suppression of daiga. It's actually the solution, because daiga is a thought, and the way to deal with the thought is to be Mesiach Das. That's the only real way. So I'm just going to quickly look at what's. I spent too long. No, I'm sorry. So here's the Malbim on this. What I'm trying to promote is something very simple. Either the non-Jewish world, even if it was started by a Jew by the name of Dr. Freud, even though it may have taken such an avalanche of influence that today, if I have a problem and I go to a rabbi about my marriage, he might not have time or give me time or say he's not trained, and he'll send me to a trained therapist. Oh, good. If I have a problem with my children today, in chinuch or discipline or lack of discipline or in parenting, my rabbi will probably send me to a therapist. Now, the din kadima, the assumption in that, the predicate is, they are the experts. And my simple question is, 1 second, is the Torah emes, yes or no? And if the answer is yes, is it possible the Torah doesn't have an answer to any problem? That's an impossibility. Like the Baal Shem HaKadosh actually says on the Pasuk, Teres Hashem Tamima, it's perfect. He says it's so perfect, it makes no difference where you look inside the Torah, you can find the solution to any problem in any Pasuk. So even though we've got categories of the mitzvahs and their details, and midas, but according to what the Baal Shem Tov is basically saying, because the Torah is tamima means perfect, without blemish. There are no mistakes. Therefore, there has to be an answer to everything. So it comes along Shlomo Melech, Chacham Mikol Adam. He's got loads and loads of psukim that deal with when I've got emotional issues, I've got worry, I've got anxiety, despair, I lack happiness in my life. So comes along the Malbim. It's a very powerful Malbim. Daiga belevish yashchina. Kol hamidais hem safunim benefesh adam. Every single midah, which we've talked about, midas are really taking place over here. All the midas, kas, gaiva, simcha, every midah, hem safunim benefesh adam. They are hidden in the soul of a human being. Ad sheharuach ma'ala ezot tziyur shel ala lev. Till what ends up happening is your mind, ruach means thought. In this, ruach means spirit, it can mean thought, and it can also mean wind. So we have to know in which context it means. So, your thought will then create some sort of tziyur. It will create some sort of a picture in your mind. That's what leiv means. I can either promote that picture, or I can demote it. I can make a big deal out of this narrative, and in my mind, my imagination, that's what we're referring to over here, as Rav Nachman talks about, is very important. He actually claims that there's really an 8th name to the Yetzer Hara, and it's Koyach HaMedameh, the power of imagination. And AI is really helping us see that it's really true. You can't tell the difference between reality and non-reality, and that is huge. That's why we need the Torah even more than ever in world history to help us be mavchin, to distinguish between emes and sheker. But he's saying the following: your mind actually creates an image in your mind about that person, about that circumstance. I can either create a good or a bad picture. Life is a battle. So I've turned life into one big war. Marriage is a battle. So now marriage is a war. Chazal tell us, Kol inyanei ha'adam hem nisyonos. That's a Mesilas Yesharim. He says in 3 different places, this is Olam HaNisayon. And everything is happening, it's a Nisayon. And Nisayon is Lashon HaKodesh. It's a perfect language. Nisayon comes from 2-letter root, nes. Nes means? Lift up. So actually, Nisayon is an invitation for me to lift who? Myself. I can either elevate myself. How do I elevate myself when you provoke me to anger? How do I elevate myself when I'm provoked to anger? So it went back to the default. How do I promote myself? How do I elevate myself? When we control ourselves in the moment of anger, we feel elevated. If I blame you, that's called running away. Lanus, from the same 2-letter root, means to run away, escape. Oh, so I can escape the Nisayon by blaming other people, accusing you and blaming you and denying it's my fault, giving excuses why it's everyone else's fault. And I play the A accuse, B blame, C complain, D deny, and E excuse. And I don't have to change. So what does Hashem have to do? Send me another Nisayon. Why? Because he doesn't give up on me. No matter how many times I run away. So the Nisayon contains 2 elements. I can either elevate myself or run away. But it also means, nes also means a banner, like a pole. You put a flag on a banner, it's called a nes. It's a pasuk. How is it a banner? Because when I'm squeezed in a Nisayon, that's the first Medrash Rabbah in Perek Aleph of Shmois, talks about the Jewish people being like an olive.
Flag?
Sorry?
Isn't it a flag?
It's a flag. The purpose of a flag,
Because of flags,
the
right?
purpose of a flag is to identify this is who I belong to, and that gives me direction. This is the direction I'm going in. Like if you read about in the Midbar, when we went out of Mitzrayim, extremely organized. The 12 Shvatim were extremely organized, and we went out. Each Shevet had its own color flag with its own emblem, its own icon, and we followed it into the Midbar. So a flag has the purpose of showing me my identity and where I'm going. The purpose of an Nisayon is to squeeze me, not to hurt me, but to squeeze me. Because what's going to come out when I'm squeezed? Whatever's inside. Oh, so that's for me to see me. This is where I'm going. Oh, gaiva, blaming, complaining. Or I'm mevatel myself. Whoa, that's big. I'm mevatel myself. I surrender. Rebbeinu Shalom, this is coming from you. That's not easy. Oh, and now I can go Keseda. As in Torah Pei Beis, he talks about Keseda, Shaloi Keseda, and there's a concept there that Rav Nachman calls Hisnagdus HaRatzon. I'm going against Hashem's Ratzon by fighting. Don't fight, because what comes out of me is for me to see the direction I'm going, and this is what's inside me. Do I want to carry on with this ridiculous anger, blaming, complaining, denying, excusing, or do I want to change? The only person I was created to change. So comes along the Malbim. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. You want to sit near? I'm going to fly through this now. The Malbim, because you see, once it's your fault, I don't have to change. Once it's someone else, it's the shadchan's fault. It's the parents-in-law. Then the mirror is on you. I don't have to look in the mirror because it's not my fault. And it's a denial of Hashem speaking to me directly through my wife, through my children, which we've quoted Rav Breiter in the Sefer Zayin Amudei Emunah, that Hashem gives us exercises in Emunah mostly through our spouse and our children. They are the best coaches for me to build my Emunah muscles. So it comes along. I'm so sorry. Wow, you got a fast. I'm going to try to keep my word. Okay. So now, ואז יבוא בוי רוח ויגלהו ויעלהו אל הלב להמשיל בוי הציר הלזה. What happens is that when I bring up my narrative, my picture of what's going on in my life, what ends up happening is it becomes a reality for me. להמשיל בוי הציר הלזה, and then it rules me. כמו ציר הגאיבה אוי הנאווה, הקינה והטייבה וכדומה, בין כוחס הנפש נמצא גם כן הדייגה. Amongst all the different strengths that we have inside us is also worry. Shehu ma she'adam doeg al ha'atid. When I worry about the future, something I cannot control. How wasteful is that? V'hatzir hazeh k'sheyimshol b'leiv minefesh ad basa yichaleh. This seer in my mind of worry about what's going to be with this kid, or this marriage, or Mad Money, whatever his name is. What's going to be tomorrow? And I'm diagramming. Shall I sell my house? I put it on the market. Where would I move? And
it's an AI agent in your mind.
Sorry?
It becomes like an AI
It's an
agent.
AI, and he's actually infused by my imagination. I'm creating this in my mind, and what ends up happening? It goes from my mind and it starts to deteriorate my muscle tone, and then it goes to my bones, as we've learned from Mishlei Perek Yudalad Pasuk Lamed that Urkavat Samos Kina, that Urkavat Samos, that there are my actual bones, which is the strongest part of the human body, can actually get rotted by Kina. And Kina says the Mutsudas on that pasuk, Kina hu inyan ka'as. It's really I'm angry. Because my jealousy is I'm angry I don't have what this person has, whether it's their intelligence, whether it's their looks, whether it's their good muscle, whether it's their finances, whether it's their beautiful children, better family, etc. And before you know it, my kina and my kas is what's actually eating away at me. And and daiga is another midah ra. Every midah ra is self-induced. I create it myself. And it's an invitation for me to either elevate myself or run away, or Nace is for me to see, oh, this is where I am. And the greatest of all is the word Nace means miracle. what's the greatest miracle that you and I would identify as the greatest miracle? So you could say, look, it's Bria Olam. If I was there, you would say this is the greatest miracle in.
If I change,
What's another greatest miracle? Maybe Kriyas Yamsuf. I'll be very impressed. Any of the Makkos, I'll be, wow, water turns to blood. You and I would be super impressed. But that's only Be'enei Ha'adam. But this language is Hashem's language. And therefore, the question we have to ask is, Rebbeinu Shloim, what would, in your dictionary, you call a nace? Because for you, water turning to blood, that's not an ace. What would you call an ace? And it's the only element in creation that Hashem says, hands off, that's your choice. When a human being changes their nature, OMG, that's huge. When Hashem manipulates nature, Hashem told the water to be fluid 1 second and solid another second as we cross the Yam Suf. But when we change our nature, wow, that's an ace. So all of this is contained in the word Nisayan. All of these ingredients, because Lashon HaKodesh dictates reality. So all the ingredients in Daiga are inside the word Daiga. All the ingredients of Simcha are in the word Simcha. It will destroy my flesh. Shigam ha'ashir. Ha'shalav kishatimshol ha'daiga belibo liyidag al ha'atid. Even a wealthy person, when he may be right now happy with that he's got shalva, but when daiga starts to take over his mind, yidag al ha'atid, and he worries about what's going to be, pen yecharav beisai, maybe his house will be destroyed. This is before they had insurance. Pen yechale oshrei, or he'll lose his ashiras. Pen yamoisoi binyan. Banav, sorry, maybe his children will die. Pen yimshulo ayvav alav v'kudayma. His enemies will prevail over him. V'hu biyagoin tamidi, and now he's in constant agony. V'eis yale hatzir hadaiga belev nasan hacham shtei eitzes lezer. So the hacham Shlomo HaMelech. Now if you, it's my personal opinion, put Freud and all his nincompoop Talmidim and Talmidot and constant Talmidim after all the generations on one side of the scale, put Hacham Mikol Adam on the other side of the scale, where he got all his eitzes and Baruch HaKodesh. Please be mochel me. Who do you think is going to win hands down? Only Shlomo HaMelech. So it comes on Hacham Mikol Adam. It gives you 2 eitzes. Lahashpil hatzir halazeh laharidoy el oimek hanefesh. Hold it down the daiga and suppress it all the way down into the depths of your soul. V'sham b'choshech sham samu yikusa, and leave it there covered up. And the first therapist is going to tell you, you're in denial. You need a lot of therapy just for that alone. More money. And more covered. And it's going to take a long time to recover from this. More money. Until he push it down until your Mashiach Das from all these imaginations that you have created, and now you're not going to be worried. Why? Because you're not thinking about it. 8's a number 2. So number 2, suppress it. Don't think about it. Instead, you should be replacing the daiga, which is an imagination of what's going to happen. This kid is going to ruin our family. Whatever is the worry. That will now be at war against the daiga worry, the daiga tzir. Think the following. You know what's going to be good in the end? It's going to be good in the end. His house will still be standing. And Hashem will fill him with a life of blessings. And there's still hope for the end. When you've got a worry in your mind, and it's taking you over your mind. Ha'etza oi is either shiashchena v'yoridena lemata, suppress it down. Oi shishamchena b'davas atoiv shishamchena, switch your mind to something good. By the way, he brings later and also says mam loyes and pele yoyetz. Yasichena la'acherim, which is one of the two manda'amas on explaining. Yasichena la'acherim means to not talk it out with others. It means yasichena, change your thought to other thoughts. It's so davar poshet. Think about something good. By bringing up a good thought, you'll make yourself happy. One opinion says, don't think about it. Either talk it to others or think about other thoughts. Both are correct. And both are actually miyusad. You can find the foundation for both these opinions in the pasuk itself. Yasichena means yasichena medatai. Stop thinking about it. Think about good things. So, in conclusion, thank you for sharing that. It's a very powerful malbim. I'm just going to finish this point. So, Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, he points out, I'll bring you a proof, he says, that it's all taking place in your mind. He says, because if you ask yourself about something that a person was obsessing over, and it was days or weeks or even longer, and now, years later, you ask him, how do you feel about that occasion? And he said, what occasion? Oh yeah. And he just laughs it off in a moment. And it goes like this and moves on. So he goes into the mechanics. How is it possible that a few years later, your mind doesn't get sucked into what happened those years ago? So he points out something so interesting. He said, because since then, your mind has been occupied through time with so many new situations coming up in the family, in the career, change of job. There's so many new people came into one's life that all of that occupied your mind, that you weren't thinking about the thing that was torturing you. And so there he proves, you see, you can even laugh it off years later, which means it's only taking place in one place, inside the mind. And we can't mention this enough, that what Moshe Rabbeinu did to us was the greatest possible act of two things. He wrote in the beginning of the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim, es hashamayim es haaretz. Hashem created the entire universe. Everything was created by him. And then the next great tova he did was he recorded what you and I heard from HaKadosh Baruch Hu ourselves. Anochi Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei Elokecha. I am your constant power of all powers, and you know that b'das ki, because I took you out of Egypt. You witnessed that. There's no shibud that I can't take you out of. Turn to me. There's nothing. So there's two things here. Hashem created the universe, and then he says, I'm also controlling the universe. Every single second. You saw it, you experienced that. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu wants us to live. And you see throughout, I'm going to Bezrat Hashem, I'll provide a list of most of the places in Likutim where Rav Nachman talks about Das. You'll see the uniting theme. Das is all taking place here, and it's putting us in charge. And what the Das is meant to bring us to is the Emunah that Hashem wants us to have, because Emunah is the real feeder of Das. We're going to see that Bezrat Hashem hopefully still today. The real feeder of Das is really Emunah. And the purpose of the Das and the Emunah working together is it will bring us to the highest level of Ratzon, which Bezrat Hashem we will look at. Ratzon is everything. Because if you think about it, why did you choose to be here? Because you want to be here. Okay, you want to be here. But then that means where you are right now is a manifestation, it's a gilui, it's a revelation of your Ratzon. If I'm scrolling on a phone right now, that's a gilui of my Ratzon. If I'm taking a drink, so everything you're doing and saying and even thinking is actually a gilui of Ratzon. So Rav Nachman, who when he was asked by Rav Nosson, I forgot where in Sichas Saran, how do you account for the fact that you're on a so much higher level of tzidkas as a tzaddik amiti than all the rest of the tzaddikim? I mean, the Chayz of Lublin, for example, once sent back a message to Rav Nachman, who had sent two of his talmidim, Rav Nosson and Rav Naftali, to the Chayzer, and the Chayzer sent back a very, very powerful shvach of Rav Naftali, and I don't remember if he said anything about Rav Nosson, and so people asked, how is that possible? And so Rav Nachman said the Chayzer, he can see what's in front of him. So he saw Rav Naftali at that moment. He was very oisik in tefillah, and at that particular moment, Rav Nosson was in the bathroom. So he didn't see any madrigas. You're not even supposed to be thinking Torah in the bathroom, whatever. So the point is, Rav Nachman saw what the Chayzer didn't see. Rav Nachman was so, and you learn about the Chayzer, it's like mind-boggling. But the point I'm bringing out is that Rav Nachman goes on das on everything. The Ikar Yira is either belev or bedas. It really comes to the same thing. Ikar Ava, toli belev, toli bedas. Ikar Yisurin is chesaron das. Ikar Galas is a chesaron of Emunah. You start putting it all together and you see, he's really telling us it's all taking place in one place. And then when asked, how do you account for you being on such a high level? He said, Mustama, people didn't have the same Ratzon, because it all comes to Ratzon. And one person said, I really want to be a kosher yid. He said, yeah, but do you really want to want? So the want to want is really the answer to everything. How deep is my Ratzon? Now, we've talked about it a little bit before. There's really three levels. There's Bechira, that's the lowest level of choosing. There's a higher level of I need something, that's more in the arena of Bakasha. But Ratzon is the highest level. Ratzon comes from two-letter root Ratz, and when you're running, it's a gilui of your Ratzon on the outside that you have to get somewhere. You must. It's the highest level. That's why there is such a chazal, Ein Dava Omed Bifnei HaRatzon. Because Ratzon, at that level, you don't have in your mind a choice about paying the mortgage. You have to pay it. So your mind will go to all sorts of levels of that you never even imagined were possible when your mind says, I've got to pay it and I don't have the money, but you must. So you'll figure out a way. Either take a loan or some sort of security or take out a lien against an asset. You'll find a way, because must takes your brain to a whole new place. I must be close to you. Rebbe Shalom, I must break my taiva for Lashon Hara. I must. And you repeat it 1,000 times in one session. It changes the mind. It's so deep that David HaMelech reveals to us there's such a thing as saying, Rebbe Shalom, I'm asking you to do something for the following. Please, create. You know what create means? Create from nothing. It doesn't say design, it says create. Create for me a new neshama, a new mind. Leiv tahar bar ali elokim. That's astonishing. Empty out my give me a whole new mindset. And then, ruach nachon chadash b'kiri. Then every new thought will be a total chiddush, because it's not going to be tainted by anything that was inside my mind before. Empty me out of all daiga. Empty me out of all resentment. That's huge. Empty me out of cars. That's huge. Empty me out from blaming. Don't let those thoughts enter my mind, and when they do, help me suppress them. Immediately move on to something else, because it's only taking place here. Yes, Dr. Rosenberg. Okay, but thank you for being here today. You got a chasna this afternoon.
A few hours.
That's extraordinary. Yeah.
Well, this is helping me.
Okay. It's helping me too. But trust me, it's
helping me function.
Yeah.
You kind of answered it, but in the psychological thinking, they would say, I believe, that by suppressing, you're not getting rid of it, and it's festering and it's building up. For example, the example that might be used is when you hit your finger with a hammer, and of course it hurts. Some people just squeeze their hand and they stop the pain. Other people just feel the pain, and by feeling the pain, then the pain leaves. So I think a psychologist, I'm not one, but I think I did study some of it, but I think they would say that you haven't solved the problem. You've just put the problem off into the future.
Yep.
And what happens is that the reason why, and you kind of answered that, is that the reason why is it dissipates over time is because of time.
Right.
It's because of time.
It's
itself,
time of what's taking place in your mind over time. You get occupied with other things.
Yes, you have other things on your mind.
Yes.
And so that this gets diminished.
Yes.
But it doesn't go away.
That's the whole point. It goes away because it's not on your mind. The Ikar Adam Hu Adas.
But time does the same thing.
So if I want to bring it up, I can. And if I want to now repeat the narrative, that you see, you can't live yesterday. It's impossible. You can't live in a past experience. It's impossible. You can't go back in time.
It feels the same.
The most you can do is give life to the past memory by talking about it now or think about it now. Do you follow? And when I give life to it, I actually give life to it. And now it becomes alive again for me. So what the Pele Yoetz, so it's in Ois Daiga. Pele Yoetz, he's the one who Rav Nosson quotes a few times. Ha'ava ayin, the past doesn't exist. Ha'atid adayin, the future hasn't happened yet. The ha'aveh minayin, the ha'aveh karafayin. The moment that you live in, which is the only time you exist. You don't live in the past, you don't live in the future. It's kaherafayin. How fast is the blink of an eye? So scientifically, it's 1/6 of a second. The moment you think about it, you are already invited to have a new thought. The past never exists. The future never exists because it's always the future. And when you get there, it's the present. And the present is only for one moment. Therefore, daiga, worry, minayin. Where will you put worry? The past I can't because it doesn't exist. The future hasn't existed yet. And if I put it in the moment, but then I'm only a kaherafayin, literally a blink of an eye away from letting go of the daiga. And so very few people quote this because I can understand why it'd be misunderstood. There's one more line in the Pele Yoetz. Kum, get up, ushtei yain, and drink wine.
And what?
Kum ushtei yain. Get up and drink wine. I understand it doesn't have to be literal. It means get up. Don't get stuck down there in worry. Get up and celebrate life. Be happy. Celebrate life. Orchet Tzadikim actually happens to say in Shara Simcha, he actually says one of the ways to pull yourself up, but he warns, don't overdrink. Just have wine ready that you can have a sip, and it takes your mind off the worry. It literally does. And if you can ask friends of yours who are more experts if it really works. It really works. But the point is, the only place we exist is in our mind. Ikar Adam Hu Adas. And to know that that's everything. Everything. Yisurin takes place there, Galus takes place there, Emunah's taking place there. Emunah is what feeds us. And I really do want to get to the Emunah piece. I've only got 3 minutes left. But basically what we've got is two items here, is Emunah and Das. Emunah took place at Brias Olam, because I had no witnesses. So I don't know it, but I have total Emunah in it. But the Das we got injected with at Har Sinai, that was imprinted on your DNA. It's printed in your neshama. Your neshama heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that is final. And because that voice is there in your mind, in your neshama, that's why it's possible for a Jew who's doesn't make a difference what Averas, it's possible for his neshama to get reawakened when he hears the echo from Har Sinai. Where it might be from being in a tunnel for 2 years in total darkness. It might be from someone who says to someone. There was a guy called Sydney Banks, who he's famous for a whole innate health movement called 3 Principles. So he never had a high school education. He left before the end of high school. He was a welder in a shipping yard in Scotland, and he had big problems once financially, and he asked an attorney friend of his to help him, and the attorney said one line to him. He said, "It's all in your mind," and the guy couldn't get this out of his mind, and he spent days and days hardly eating or drinking or sleeping, digging and digging. It's all in my mind, until he came up with these, what he calls 3 principles, that there's only divine knowledge and divine mind and divine thought, and Hashem is the one who is operating all 3, and we only operate in that whole arena. And there's a lot of different break-offs from that whole concept. Rav Nachman was talking about this 200 years ago, that this is what Moshe Rabbeinu put into us. You are your mind, and once you know that, now I am free. I have the potential of being liberated from thinking that the world's happening to me. The world is not happening to us, it's happening through us, and I get to interpret, like the Malbim pointed out, I get to choose a different picture. I'm not stuck with the picture that pops up in my mind that that's who you are. And if I go with Reish Pei Beis, there's no end to how many Nekudas Tovas I can add and add and add to myself and to my spouse, to my children, and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and be done on the world. And then what ends up happening, we change our minds. So, I'll close. The Emunah we got at Brias Olam in the words that Rav Nachman speaks several times in Sichas Haran. We are so grateful to Moshe Rabbeinu that he started off the Torah, Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim es haaretz. That's the beginning of our Emunah. The Das we got at Har Sinai, because you can't undo what you know, you experienced. Now that becomes part of your Das. And that was Har Sinai. So you got Ma'aser Bereshis is our Emunah, and you got the V'yadat hayom v'ha'areisa ladas. All that's referring to the Yetziat Mitzrayim and Matan Torah. So that's Das. You can't unexperience that. So those are the two pieces that is repeated again and again and again throughout our liturgy. Even in Baruch She'amar V'haya Ha'olam, we're blessing Hashem that spoke, the power, Koach HaDibur, created the whole universe. And then we, in the same Baruch She'amar, we then say Baruch Oiseh Bereshis. He's still making Bereshis. And just a few lines later in the Birkas Krishma, we actually say, a few paragraphs later, we say HaMechadish B'chol Yom Tamid Masa Bereshis. So Hashem is constantly renewing Bereshis, and that was the origin of our real Emunah. Even Rabbeinu Bachya, I think I mentioned, he says if you didn't have Yetziat Mitzrayim and Matan Torah to know how HaKadosh Baruch Hu exists, you could have still known it from Master Bereshis. You would have still known it from there. But what these two are basically leading to is the moment I know, I'm not talking about an intellectual Havana of, oh, this is where I'm operating. It's actually an invitation for experiencing it. Because the one thing I pay the least attention to is my thoughts. Because I'm thinking all the time. You don't pay any attention to the air. How many times have you ever worried about, will there be enough oxygen for all of us? There's almost 8 billion people on planet Earth, for heaven's sake. How is there going to be enough oxygen for us all? So no one wakes up in the morning thinking, there's not going to be enough oxygen, I better start investing. Now, I know, no, will there be enough oxygen in my lungs to keep me going? No one does that. Why not? Because oxygen is everywhere all the time. Except unless a person's 1 second too long under the mikveh or in a swimming pool, has for shalom. Otherwise, you never worry. You don't think about oxygen. I'm talking about something that's closer to us than oxygen. It's thought. You can only exist with thought. Rav Nachman talks about it in Mem Dalet in Chai Moran. You can't stop thinking. Even when you're asleep, he says, you can't stop thinking. Only recently we know that the mind is, that you can actually see on a monitor that there's thoughts going through with the dreams while a person's sleeping. We can never stop thinking. And when we die, the physical body dies, the mind continues. So we're still thinking. But then we've lost the chance to choose Hashem in our lives. Because now we get to see the score. Now Rav Nachman does tell us you could still insist that you go to the Tzaddik Emes to take care of you after your physical death, but in the meantime, thought is everything. And because thought is everything, it trumps everything. But once I know this is really where I'm experiencing life, now I've got a better grip on the highest level of everything, Ratzon. Ratzon's higher than Chochmah, which Bezrat Hashem we will look at later. Everything comes down to Ratzon. And how much do I really, really must have this? How much do I really want? How much do I really want to be a Yerei Shemayim? How much do I really want to cut out this Lashon Hara? How much do I really want to actually think kind thoughts, b'shas achila, that will change the constitution of the food that is actually being eaten and is being circulated around my mouth, and all the enzymes in the saliva that's breaking it down, the thoughts that are taking place at the same time are affecting the food in my mouth and the digestion as I swallow. Everything is affected by thought. And because of that, therefore, once a person realizes, oh my gosh, if I have Emunah in you, Rebbeinu Shalom, then my Emunah in you has to get to the highest possible level, that you really love me. We're going to see that Bezrat Hashem, Rav Nachman talks about 4 levels of Emunah, and he mentions that one that I miss out the most on is Emunah in myself, that Hashem really really looks at everything I say, do, and think with chavivus, that it's really precious, it's really beloved. And if I would really to know that, then it would change how I learn, how I daven, how I interface with people. It would change my anger, it would change my levels of tolerance. Everything changes because I've got Emunah that Hashem, you're sending me this person right now, and therefore it's for me to deal with, not for me to run away from. It's for me to figure out, okay, how are you speaking to me through this difficult Nisoyan that I'm going through? And it's through that we come to the Ratzon where we say, Rebbe Shalom, I beg of you, please give me Ratzon. So Rav Nachman talks about Hisbodus, which really is connected, even it's not in this Torah per se, but Hisbodus is where we are Megale our Ratzon. That's where we want to get beyond our taivas, beyond all the stuff that gets me down, and get to a place where Rebbe Shalom, it's only Das Elokim Timsa. I'm going to find you, because that's what you put me through this. Is this making sense? Yeah, it's making sense. So in the Schus of Bezrat Hashem, we're going to look at Sichas next week, Reish Yud Zayin. We're going to look at that and see how Rav Nachman puts together Das and Emunah, and it's all about doing it with Emunah and Pshitas and Tamimus, because it will lead to Ratzon, which is the highest level. All is higher than Chochmah. He's going to explain to us it's higher than the highest wisdom. Ratzon is everything. Any questions? Both to you.
Yes, on the Malbim,
Yes.
that he says it's one of the two.
Yes.
Isn't it really both?
It's really both.
It's really you.
Yes.
No, I want to be Masiach Das.
Yes.
So I'm going to think of a good thought.
Yes.
Not that I'm being Masiach Das by distracting myself by anything.
Yes.
I'm being Masiach Das with a good thought.
Right. Yeah. It's in the end. It comes down to basically exactly the same thing.
Change the conversation in your mind.
Either it's I get really good at distracting myself, or I'm not so good at distracting myself, so I've actually got to make a more intentional
conscious
effort to distract myself by thinking, opening up a Tehillim, opening up a Sefer, making a phone call.
Isn't that like what the Rebbe says about when you have bad thoughts?
Yes.
Just go to, we learned it in
Yes.
Simcha, is about going to just go to the next thought.
Yes, go to the next thought. Get busy with a different thought. Get busy. He says even if it's masa matan or milit b'tika.
Mazel tov.
Yeah. Sorry, you're very patient. Thank you.
You spoke a lot about time.
Yes.
But this doesn't seem like it has that. Hashem, there's no time in the. Are we really talking? We're not really talking about time at all here.
Correct.
I just want to clarify that time. It sounded like with time things. It's not.
No.
No.
It's all the thoughts that took place in that period that was Masiach Das on another, and deeper and deeper and deeper until the memory of it is so far down deep that when someone reminds me of all that suffering I had, I laugh at it because it's not going to suck me in. It's so far away from me. But why is it far away from me? Because of the amount of thoughts that took place in the time period between when it happened and now. That's what Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter, he says, Ulam la'acha avu zman shel shanu shnatayim. When a year or two passes, shekvan nikal mehem, you're already been redeemed from that whatever you suffered. Harizeh kechuka v'tula b'einav. It's like a mockery. It's a joke in his mind. V'kol emas shenizkar behem. Every time he remembers what happened, hu tameh al atzmai. He'll be surprised at himself. Keitzad yitachen. How was it possible? Shedivrei shtus ke'elu. That such foolishness as happened, matzu makam b'moichai, took such root in my mind. It found a place in my mind. Ad shekimat shavshu et dasai. I'm so completely confused. My mind was hijacked. V'ilu achshav hu miskabe aleim bekal. But now, if you try to awaken what I suffered those years ago, that memory, it'll be very easy for me to overcome. Miskabe aleim bekal.
But when a person has an when you have an obsessive thought that's due to a trauma or something like that.
Yeah.
How does that? What's the cure?
The cure is knowing where the trauma is taking place or took place. I'm going to give you one. I think I shared this with you once. I'm not sure. There's a doctor. I've forgotten his name now. He was head of trauma in Miami Beach Hospital for over 30 years. Name suddenly escapes me. So I was in the audience at an innate health conference done under Rabbi, his name, Twersky, of Milwaukee. So this doctor was speaking, psychologist, is in retirement now, but you can find him on, if I can remember the name, you'll find him on YouTube. So he, I asked him, in front of the whole audience, I asked him, what's the most, he's someone who's a psychologist. He'd seen trauma thousands of times, not hundreds, thousands of times. And so he saw different ways people handled trauma. Not everyone's the same. It's in every area of life. Grief. Not everyone deals with grief the same way. Two spouses, a wife can deal with the grief of loss of a child, Rahman al-Islam, totally differently to the husband. And it's not a steer, that's how they're dealing with, that's taka how they're dealing with it. One is ignoring it, and that's his mental health. And the other one is talking about it, and that's their mental health at the time. So Dr. Keith Blevins. Dr. Keith Blevins, you can Google him, it's fascinating, very, very interesting. He said the most extraordinary case of someone who was traumatized that immediately demonstrated innate health throughout the entire episode was a young lady, 33 years old. She was brought in unconscious, having been raped by a gang. They found, I think, it was over 30 people of the DNA who had abused her over the whole night. She was brought in, they had to stitch her up with over 300 stitches. When she was in recovery ward, the protocol in that Miami Beach hospital was that Keith Blevins would introduce himself, and he said, my name is Dr. Keith Blevins. I'm here with my team. We're here to help you, that whenever you're ready to talk about what you've been through, we're here to help you. And her response was, oh, that's okay. My body was in the wrong place at the wrong time, but my mind is completely unharmed. Wow. So his initial thought was, she's in denial, right? Let's not talk about it. But she was his case study for the next 3 months while she was in physical therapy, and it was the exact same script. Nothing has changed inside my mind. It happened. Why do I have to talk about it? So I'm going to tell you without giving you details, because of a young lady. She was raped dozens and dozens of times over a 2-week period by her father's best friend. She was, the father was tricked. I can't say too many details. It was tricked to be in someone's house, and she thought she was going to be there for a completely different reason, and that the father was in Europe on a business trip, and he wasn't. He was home. His wife was not there for a few weeks. She came out a complete basket case, and I was told that the wife was on tranquilizers. She couldn't sleep at night. The elder son went off the derech overnight. He was an Ilui. Apparently he was an Ilui. He said, if you, Rebbeinu Shalom, can do this to my sister, who's a bas terror and a basula and a clean, edel girl, then I want nothing to do with your religion. Rahman al-Islam. So I said, the guy came up to me after a class on Simcha, and he said, it's all very nice that you talk about Simcha as really taking place in your mind, but it has no relevance to my matzav. So he started telling me about his matzav, and I said to him, so help me, please be merciful me, I'm asking you this question. Is this man still traumatizing your daughter? I said, no, of course not. So that means it happened, it's a memory. So the only way that a person can be traumatized by it now is by remembering it, and that gives life to that memory. So we talked, it was actually 2 hours. Finally I told him, look, I'm not the right guy to unpack this for you, but I'll send you to someone. His name is Zvi Werther. At that time he lived in Brooklyn, now he lives in London, and he has podcasts all the time on this subject. And he took his daughter to Zvi Werther, and in 2 hours, that was, the daughter came out with her father, and she said, there's nothing wrong with me. How many questions did Zvi Werther ask her about what she went through? And the answer is 0. The only thing he focused on was, where do you experience life? There's only one place. and that's thought. And when you have a memory, the only way you can give life to that memory, especially a very, very, very painful one, my father this, my mother that, my aunt this, my uncle molested me, my grandfather, it's really his fault, it all started with him, and then before, my brother took advantage, and before you know it, it's these memories that adds up. I'm a victim, I am traumatized, I am scarred for life. I'll never be able to be a normal human being, and before you know it, I'm a lifetime in therapy. So comes along Rav Nachman, but I'm sharing with you the most extraordinary, extreme examples of people who've been traumatized. Her school wanted to throw her out because she was refusing to go to 2 double sessions of therapy a week. She said, I don't need it. She said, she said, there's nothing wrong with me. I was in a terrible situation that hurt me, but the only way that I can be traumatized now is to think about it or talk about it. So I get to choose that, and I'm choosing not to. So everyone will tell her, all the professionals will say, you're in denial. But she said, no, it's really here. So actually he only had 2 sessions. The guy called me, the father called me a few weeks later and said he cannot believe the turnaround. It's 180 degrees. Because once you know it's taking place over here, then it's my choice to continue living in that pain or to let go. And when a person recognizes, I really actually have that choice, that's so powerful. Because who's in charge of your life now? But if it's much more popular to say, no, you're damaged, and you're denying it, and it's just going to go deeper, and then it's going to come up like a volcano in your marriage. So that's why you need therapy. And this can go on for weeks, months, and years, and all it does is eventually get to me that there's something wrong with me. I can't stand up for myself. I let this happen. And where were my parents? Where was my father? Where he's supposed to protect me? And I'll never be able to trust him. She even said to her father, I went in saying I'll never be able to get married. Said, I'm coming out saying now, I know I can get married. It's going to take me a few more sessions till I feel I can trust a man, but I know I can get married. That's huge. Because for weeks and weeks she's saying to herself, I'll never be able to marry. How could she ever trust a man to be respectful of who she is, instead as opposed to treating her as a piece of meat for his pleasure? So I'm here to claim there are enough stories out there in history and today that nobody can say, because of the trauma I've been through, I am relegated to a second-class quality of life. It's simply not true. And I know this goes right in the face of a lot of therapy today. Too bad. I'm on Shlomo Melech's side, and I will not budge. It's never too late to have an unhappy childhood. Very nice. You want to make money on people who've had a hard time? Do it, but you've got to pay the price of it. Because there's din v'cheshbon, and toiv min ha-roifim legehenim, that's a Mishnah in Kiddushin, and it's talking about roifim of the goof. But if you want to play games with other people's minds and dig up, so why do you think you couldn't stand up for yourself? What is it about your mother that you hate the most? Where do you think that? When was your first memory of your mother being a bully in your life and not giving you a choice? And before you know it, I believe I'm damaged, and I didn't realize how damaged I was. And as I come up another session, I realized I was more damaged than I realized. And so I'm so grateful, because now I got much more clarity about how damaged I really am. And it just goes on and on and on. And Rivka Emunah, we're told her father was a Rasha. Besuel was not his real name. It was just a play on the word Basula. He was Boel Basulos. That's the Medrash Haggadah, a sick man. And here he is. And that's why the Malach knocked him off the night before he was supposed to let his daughter go, because he was going to do the same thing to Rivka before she went with Eliezer to marry Yitzhak. That's what a sick man he was. And Lavan, he was a gangster, a liar, a cheat, a con man. He made the Godfather look like Winnie the Pooh. He was the worst lowlife you can imagine. So comes along the Torah and tells me, Rashi quotes the Medrash, why are you repeating that Rivka is the daughter of Besuel, the sister of Lavan, Mipadan Aram. We already know that from Perek Hafdalah, the Perek before, a long Perek, all about the Shidduch. She was already identified. Why are you telling me this? Comes on Rashi, L'hagit Shivcha, to tell you her praise. Her father was a Rasha, her brother was a Rasha, V'anshe Mekayma Rashaim, and everyone, whole society, whole neighborhood, the whole city were wicked. V'lo lamda mima'asehem. She did not learn from their deeds, from their actions. She made a choice. You are never traumatized. You can move on. And when she was given the choice, do you want to go with this stranger of a man to meet this stranger of a chassan? She said one word, Eilech, I will go. Aleph in front of a word in a verb means I will. Lashon of Torah is perfect. The Lashon of the Torah is perfect. You put Aleph in front of a word, it means I will. What gaiva? What do you mean I will? How do you know you will? You need Hashem. Oh, Aleph is first found in the Torah, in the first word at the beginning of a word is Elokim. Anochi. Yud, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. When you put Aleph, you don't mean I will. I mean with Hashem's power, I'm putting Aleph, Hashem, in front, and I will, no matter what. So that's what Rav Nachman is all about. I will be a bigger tzaddik than I have been till now. And he kept on digging deeper and deeper and higher. And that's what he's promising us. So let go of all the stuff and focus on Ratzon. Ratzon's higher than Chochmah, it's higher than Emunah, it's higher than everything. But Emunah is what you need to get to Ratzon. You have to really have Emunah. Hashem loves me so much, I can ask for everything because you love me, you're my father. What would you say no to? How many times will you say no to me that I want to be stronger in my avodas Hashem? And I get Papratius, this is where I want to be stronger in my davening. This is how I want to be stronger in my davening, etc., etc. I will, that's Ratzon. Aleph, put that first. Nobody has a right, especially after Rav Nachman coming into this world and tells us the real truth. Ein shum yush ba'olam klal. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. Depression is an industry. I'm 100% serious. And I don't say it myself. There are seasoned psychologists that came out. They produced an amazing documentary called Medicating Normal. And they give you evidence for where the pharmaceutical companies basically have actually provided all the information for professors who are teaching psychology and pharmacy in the universities where all the doctors are getting their graduation. They're being informed that these are real diseases and a real disease has to be treated with medication. And then when they did the research, these are psychologists themselves, psychiatrists, they said, oh my gosh, we have been lied to because there's nothing wrong with someone who's been traumatized. One of those people, she was a psychiatrist in a military hospital in the Gulf War. She was stationed there, and there was one commander of the unit that was brought in with trauma because several of his men were blown up by going to a place that he told them to go to, and that vehicle was blown up with a mine, and he had the terrible responsibility to inform the families of his, and he was going out of his mind. He couldn't sleep at night. So ordinarily, she said, her training was very simple. You put him on tranquilizers so he can fall asleep at night. But that's not a solution. She said, after she learned what she knows about medicating normal, these people are normal, what she would have done is the following. First, she would have said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're traumatized because of what you've been through, and your guilt is 100% normal. What you need is not a tranquilizer. What you need is to be Masir Das. You've got to take your mind off. So I'm giving you the following prescription. You've got to take minimum 3 weeks off. I'm sending you back to America. You're off duty, and then we figure out how to pay for you to get a vacation. So you've got money there to spend, to just relax, do whatever you want, and then come back. But there's nothing wrong with you. You're human, and humans are going through grief for something that they're grieving. You're grieving a decision that you made correctly based on the information you had, and therefore you're 100% normal. They had lots and lots of examples of people doing this, where they've been put on medication because of what mentally not well, or there's a mental imbalance because of ADD, ADHD, and we are destroying our children this way. It's horrific what we're doing to our kids with medications, because there's long-term effects, and most of these medications have not been checked for what are the decades of taking these medications. What is the long-term after effect? And Rav Nachman is here to tell us you can heal yourself because it's taking place over here. Let go.
So a scenario where both approaches would maybe be a little bit of a challenge is when the trauma resulted in a physical injury. Let's say in your case, if there was a child that was born out of this situation,
Yes.
or if somebody hurts someone and tortures them and cuts his hand off.
Yes.
So the traditional therapy won't bring the hand back either.
Right.
The question is how would this approach solve the problem? Because there's a physical injury that he's living with for the rest of his life.
So on 6 Wiener Drive here in Monsey, go visit a gentleman by the name of Avram Weiss. Yeah, Avram David Weiss.
He comes to the stuff.
Yeah. MS.
He's got ALS.
Yeah.
And he had a plaque put in his front room. There's no part of his body that moves. His eyes are able to move. I'm not sure about right now. I think he's been going blind, and he's got a permanent smile on his in his mouth, and he has a plaque in his front room where he redefined ALS. He says, "I have ALS." Under the A he put always, under the L he put live, and under S he put smiling. Always live smiling. He would not tolerate anyone speaking anything negative about his condition. He has 3 shifts of carers, 8 hours a shift, 24/7. He's a Vishnitz Chassid. He has minyanim every single day in that room, and he has chavrusas there's a special technology which reads his eye, because his body's in a permanent position, and he's able to read on the screen all the letters of the Aleph Beis and ABC and all the numbers. And on the top of the screen, top right, there's an icon of a microphone, and on the bottom there's also the space bar. So when he looks at any ice for more than 1.5 seconds, it gets printed on the bottom of the screen. Then he goes to the next ice. Then he looks at the space bar and makes a space. When he's ready to talk, that's when he's finished the sentence. His eyes goes to the microphone, and it reads in the voice of his brother-in-law, who recorded all the words, whatever. He reads out the message he wants to communicate to other people. So here's someone who's living inside a physical prison, literally, and that prison is his physical body, and yet he lives a life smiling, and his children are mad about him. And this is extreme. Anyone knows anything about ALS, what ends up happening is the vast majority of people with ALS, they become bitter and angry about their situation. It's constantly deteriorating. And if they're not going to take control of the only place they still control, which is thought, which is everything, he finished just twice Be'iyun, made a huge celebration with over 200 people. Rav Schlesinger spoke about it, and the first siyum, he said there's probably never been a siyum like this in world history, where a Jew, Lefun Sarah Agra, was able to do this. We are all operating over here, no matter what the physical injury, and there's lots of examples of this. He's just one example. I can tell you more stories about him. It's extraordinary. And I've told you already about Superman. He was reduced to a quadriplegic, and yet he said, "I've never been more happy in my life than since my accident." And he said the logic. He said, because I discovered the real me is not my body. The real me is not my money. The real me is not my many properties.
And when it's a person that caused that injury to you, I'm talking about when Hashem did it. I'm just saying it creates more of a challenge. It doesn't. The traditional therapy won't solve it. Like I said, it won't bring the hand back. Neither will this approach.
The
bring the hand back.
Nisayan is
It's
exactly
just
the same.
making
The
peace in your
ingredients are
mind.
different. So now I've got the added ingredient that someone did this to me,
Right.
either by accident or worse, on purpose. So now I've got to deal with the Nisayan of, if only I wasn't there at that time, and I missed the car. If someone distracted me, then I would have been injured by that tree falling on me. Unfortunately, that person didn't survive. But all I'm saying is, the principle is exactly the same. This is where we operate. It makes no difference whether the situation is a physical one, whether it's deliberate or not. It comes to the same thing. How am I going to respond over here? It's the only place I operate, and that's Bechira.
Oh yeah.
Baruch
Oh, yeah.
Baruch
Thank
Tia.
you. Thank you.
Baruch Tia. Shkoyach for your patience.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for that Malbim.
The question, it's the first time I hear about. I think you actually touched it
I
once.
touched upon it, but I
You
didn't
touched
quote it
once.
aside.
It's amazing. It's a Malvin.
It's a Malvin that it's very touching. You can write 2 books just on
Yes.
just on this music and
Yeah, 100%.
Malvin.
100%.
Can you send that album?
Yeah, I'll post
We,
it on the
we
group.
have been hijacked. We've been hijacked by therapy.
Yes. The question becomes.
The
Matti asked
Havamina
about-
that there
yeah.
could be something wrong with me that I can't heal.
Matti, I sent it to you private, so you can. I'll post it on. You're on the Breslov Amsterdam, right?
No, I'm not. Why am I
I'll
not?
send it to you
I
private.
don't know. Yeah, you put me up.
All right, now.